to Alberta Impact. I'm your host, Bryce Lambert. Since the legalization of cannabis, there's been a plethora of companies here in Alberta alone. We are estimated to grow that number by 200 more within a couple of years. Various companies have diversified into using cannabis for medicinal purposes as well. Here to talk more is Troy Dezwart, Executive Director and co-founder of Freedom Cannabis. Thank you so much for coming in, Troy.
Thanks for having me. Great
Absolutely. So you guys, Freedom Cannabis, you're over in the Parkland County. You know, this whole entire economy around cannabis now has kind of come to fruition. It's a reality now. We're starting to grow this. Can you tell us a little bit about Freedom Cannabis and the history behind you?
Sure, yeah. The industry is evolving quickly, a long ways to go, but we started the company in early 2017, myself and two friends, John and Julie Potestio. At the time, a lot of people here in Edmonton, friends of ours, had invested in some of the space, and there was a lot of hype. Yeah. So we thought it was something that we wanted to at least look into and investigate the opportunity. So we decided to set up an office for just a couple months, just some temporary office space, just to learn a bit about the opportunity. And so we did that. We went ahead and started learning about some of the challenges of our peers and some of the opportunities in the industry. At the time, it was only medicinal, and recreation was on the horizon. It was something that they were speaking about. So we learned early on that the licensing application was probably one of the most contentious parts of the process, and many people that had tried and failed was basically a lack of their ability to gather good information and surround themselves with people that had actually navigated through the process. Although it was only a 10-page application that you could print online, by the time the submission was completed, it was 15 or 16 binders full of standard operating procedures and details and security clearances and all sorts of other really, really detailed things that if you hadn't been through the process before would be very difficult to do. So that's something we caught on too early, surrounded ourselves and hired a great consultant that we still work with today.
Great.
And then also started learning about some of the challenges the industry was faced with, and growing high quality cannabis was and still is today probably one of the greatest challenges. When we started in the industry, scale was a big narrative in terms of a grower's ability to grow and create capacity and yield. So we secured a site that had that narrative. We're on 30 acres of land with the ability to scale up to 1 million square feet. So lots of growth opportunity there. But we also knew that they were having trouble growing good quality cannabis. Different than growing cannabis in an unregulated environment, there's a lot of rules and regulations and a lot of limitations. So we learned early on that not growing in large areas was something that we needed to do, and we found a precedent study in Saskatchewan called CannaMed. They were one of the first licensees that were creating products to provide to the Canadian government, and they adopted this idea of growing in smaller growing rooms. And that comes with a couple of benefits. In the event that some contamination makes it through the various levels of defense you have, you're able to try to control it, or in the worst case scenario, you can tear down a room without losing the entire crop or the entire facility. A second pronged benefit is your ability to control the environment. So the temperature, the lighting, the humidity, the CO2 levels, and to have a relationship between the growing team and the plants that it enables you to grow what they refer to as craft quality product. So the ability to detect illnesses and nutrient deficiencies, and just that relationship between the gardening team and the plant is very, very important. So you talk about larger facilities and how that can benefit you theoretically with scale. It's not a reality, and right now you're hearing in the industry there's a surplus of product, and there is, of average or below average product, and there's still a massive demand for high quality products. So that's something we caught on to early, and at the time it was a little difficult to get people to understand why we were spending $300-400 a foot to build when other companies were doing it for far less. Fortunately enough, we were able to get the message across, and we were able to raise the capital necessary to get the facility started. And now, of course, it's built out, it's licensed, and we're harvesting crops, soon to be in stores and online here early next year. So we've come a long ways.
No kidding. Especially in a market that's adapting as it goes. Like it's you know, that adaptation is to keep up with something like that must be one heck of a maze, a rat race kind of, if you'd say. But it sounds like your guys is, you know, I mean, in the cannabis industry, the policies on regulating the quality and whatnot, I mean, it almost sounds like it's higher than what we use for our average food consumption, you know, regulations. Like it's pretty high stuff.
Well, it is. In many cases, it is, yeah. So our facility, one vision that we had was to try to get what they call GMP, Good Manufacturing Practices, accreditation to take products outside of Canada.
Oh.
So in that case, you need EU GMP certification. So the way you build a facility, record keeping, and other standards that you need to adhere to meet that standard to be able to ship into countries like Germany, which have some of the highest standards in the world. That's something that we were very focused on early on.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge, and things are changing every day, and it's exciting. You know, as much as it's taxing, and you know, there's a lot to be aware of, and there's a lot of changes happening. But it's exciting. No day is the same, and
Yeah.
I think for us, when we started the company, you know, we looked at some of our peers and some of the leaders in the industry at the time, and we decided if we were going to do it, that we wanted to compete at the highest level. So we set some really high standards for ourselves in terms of the construction quality, design and development, the team, the values that we created as a company. So, you know, we've been very, very lucky to be able to maintain those standards, and it's opened up a lot of doors
For sure.
for opportunity. And we just launched not too long ago, or actually just activated the Canada's largest solar strategy, rooftop solar strategy.
Let's talk about some of that. Yeah, some of the innovations you guys are doing over there are super cool. And those are important things that people are looking at going into the future. So yeah, sorry, I had to break you, but
No.
I really wanted to jump in on that. So yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's important to us, you know, not only to minimize our impact on the environment, but to look for ways to optimize our operating costs. So we spent a year or two researching different strategies. One included solar. So we were fortunate to meet a group, NMAX, and do a feasibility study that took us about a year and a half, which ended in just recently announcing we are activating Canada's largest rooftop solar installation. So it'll offset in phase one, which we're operating out of now, probably around 65 or 70% of our power requirements. And when the facility is fully built out, closer to 10 or 12%.
Wow.
So it's important, yeah. We were lucky to get the last grant from Energy Efficiency Alberta for close to $1 million, which made it a much easier decision. But focused on other things like water remediation. So some of the water that we use in the growing process is reused, it's recycled, reused, retreated. So we're doing what we can there. We recently announced that we'll be the first LP in Canada to use a fully recyclable packaging strategy. So we fully intend to be in stores with that sometime early next year. So that's exciting. And researching other types of strategies like co-generation using biofuels and natural gas. It's important to us.
Yeah.
And I think it also, a benefit of that mind thought is people embrace the company because we care, and it's something that differentiates us in many ways from some of our peers, although many other people are doing things too. But it's another reason to talk about the company. Not, you know, there's been enough talk about new licensees and all the other things in the industry, and when you can come and speak about other things that people can connect with, I think it's a great way to differentiate yourselves, and it's great for the company.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, you know, authentic values are very important, and we're going into an age, I think, where authenticity is so well sought after right now and so in demand right now. And what I love that whole theme around, you know, growing up, marijuana was all about the natural, and cannabis was all about the natural aspect of it, and you taking the next step on natural, where you're doing the biofuels and you're doing renewable resources to power and facilitate your distribution, is such a massive thing, and environment is such a massive topic right now. So the fact that you're incorporating that into your strategy and your structure, super wicked to see. So that's, I mean, super cool stuff and very neat. And going into an emerging market to be that far ahead on, you're very forward thinking. Like, it just seems like you guys have really got that nailed down, which has been great.
Yeah, we're lucky. You know, we've got a great team of people, and one thing I think that has helped us along the way is our ability to gather information and to be open-minded and to learn. With things changing as fast as they are, you have to be open-minded, and your ability to surround yourself with people that believe in what you're doing enough so that they will bring value to this process is important. And if they don't think you're authentic and they don't believe in what you're doing, generally it's pretty tough to surround yourself with good people.
For sure.
One thing that we also believe in is we've got a lab that's just almost built out. It's about 18,000 square feet. So this lab is focused on R&D, product development, for the medicinal markets, also for the recreational markets with edibles. We're focused on edibles sometime early next year, but it's the scale and the quality of the lab has opened some doors for partnerships with groups that we'll be announcing here over the next month or so, for clinical trials, product development, collaborations with universities all around the world. And you know, you start talking about things like dosage forms and onset and delivery methods, and efficacy. These are the things that the medical community wants to hear. And I believe that the next step, which is happening now, but the faster we can see the medical community embrace the various uses for phytocannabinoids to enrich and improve the quality of people's lives, that's going to really be the next step to seeing exponential growth. And it's happening now.
Yep.
Large companies, drug companies, pharmaceutical companies, companies such as ourselves are investing money in that research and development. And you see and you hear about, you know, people from all walks of lives that are benefiting from the research that's been done, and we're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Well, and that's growing so quickly too. And I think that the pharmaceutical companies and health is really starting to take notice as well. And yeah, the fact that the groundwork is at least being done, the foundations, the books, and we all know that there has to be testing. And when you're starting something new, there's going to be some movement and shifting and whatnot happening. And so that's happening, and that's at least it's the first step. So it's really interesting to see where the future is for this kind of for cannabis itself. If you don't mind me, I'd like to just talk a little bit about how do you see the overall economics of cannabis and its effect? I mean, you're opening these facilities that are massive, and you're employing people, you're bringing jobs in, and then you're bringing outside investors to come in, collaboration. Can you talk a little bit about the economics of cannabis and what and the kind of effect that's happening on the economy?
Yeah, there's two parts of that. I consider ourselves to be part of kind of the second wave of cannabis companies. When we started it, we definitely studied and learned a lot from some of the successes and failures of the people before us, and they've opened up opportunity. They've done a lot of great things for the industry, but at the time that the industry was very hyped up, and a lot of what the cannabis companies were doing, aside from wanting to grow the industry for positive reasons, was their outward face in terms of stock values and prices and things like that. So a lot of the decisions that they made in terms of acquiring companies and paying oftentimes more than what they were worth, and printing share capital to do it, and not really being mindful of what the consequences of those decisions would be, are kind of happening now. And you're hearing about downward pressure from banks and financial institutions and investors, because some of the commitments and the targets that these companies had made, they're not realizing on. And a lot of the people that are close to the industry knew that a lot of those things would probably never happen, but that was what was happening at the time.
Yeah.
So there's a correction happening, and for us, we will be we're focused on being profitable by early next year, which means we'd be cash flow positive within less than the first year that we were licensed, which would make us one of very few companies to do that. So, in terms of the economics of the business, the government has done their best, and I know they're doing their best to see the industry evolve, and it's very difficult. There's a lot of moving parts, but the taxes on the products right now is very egregious, I think, at times, and especially for a new industry that's just growing. And there's a lot of benefits to this industry as we employ people. There's R&D, there's construction, there's massive investments in the space. And I think we're trying to work with the government to get them to be a little bit more mindful of helping us through these early stages, and maybe looking to tax us down the road. So in terms of being profitable, if you don't have a good facility that can grow high quality products and get a good price per gram, for example, there's oftentimes where you can't compete.
Yeah.
Consumers don't want your product. So over the next 6 months to a year to 18 months, you're going to find a lot of companies that will cease to exist. It's difficult to raise capital right now. We've been very lucky. In our case, we've raised close to $50 million. We're in the process of raising more. So we're in a good position, unlike a lot of our competitors, and we don't want to see anybody fail. But it's a symptom of early movers that maybe didn't have the access to information that we did when we started the company. So some will make it and some won't. So there's a correction happening. But fortunately for us, we think that we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah. Well, and you guys, going back to some of the earlier things you said, you guys you've had the foresight, and you've really looked to encompass a wide variety of, predetermined concerns that were there. You've managed to kind of focus that and answer those ahead of. So being proactive as opposed to being reactive, it looks like it's really been a strength for you guys. So that's super great. Troy, thank you so much for coming onto the show for us today and giving us this information. This has been super insightful. I'd love to have you back to see, in a little while, and to see how kind of things have progressed. And I know that's probably a lot sooner than we'd think, because this thing's moving so fast, and there's so much to have to. Yeah, exactly. It'll be a whole new story. So, right on. Again, thank you so much for joining us today and helping us get some information out there. So there you have it, folks. If you'd like to learn more about Freedom Cannabis, we have provided the links in the description below. Coming up next is Ghost City Outsiders, all the way from Devon. So be sure to tune in right away. We'll get them up, and thanks for watching. Hailing all the way from Drayton Valley, performing the original 1,000 Years. Please welcome Ghost City Outsiders.
Wander around looking for life. Nothing seems to thrive. If it does, it dies. Under the heat of the night, feel the burning in my eyes as the sun breaks the night. Haven't touched in days light since they took away my life. Everybody burns out, every light turns out. 1,000 years and I don't wanna stay. Your light is burned out. In my mind there's no doubt. 1,000 years and I don't wanna stay. Wait quiet out of sight, a stranger in the night, feeling burned deep inside, have the need to stay alive. Quick scream with little fight, I destroy another life. Runs red as she dies at the hands of the night. Everybody burns out, every light turns out. 1,000 years and I don't wanna stay. Your light is burned out, in my mind there's no doubt. 1,000 years and I don't wanna stay. What I've seen is killing me, the blood, the pain, and never scream, but it's still beating heart is calling me. I hear you breathe, I smell your fear. You can tell that I am near, but I won't shed a bloody tear. Yeah. Everybody burns out, every light turns out. 1,000 years and I don't wanna stay. Your light is burned out, in my mind there's no doubt. 1,000 years and I don't wanna stay. Maybe there's a little light if you turn your head just right. 1,000 years in hell I'm gonna stay. The taste of of death just feels right, and I am filled with new life. 1,000 years and I ain't going anywhere.
That was Ghost City Outsiders. They will be playing on February 14th, 2020 at Connor's Irish Pub. Be sure to check them out. That's it for tonight. Join me again next Thursday at 7 p.m.
What that's called.